Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Jameson Maxwell. And Jameson, it's been a minute since we've talked here on the Schooner Pod. And, with kind of some of the football news trickling out, we had a little bit of a hiatus because, frankly, bit of a tough football season. And, we need a little bit of a break. And we were just looking for that right moment to get in and talk about OU basketball. And look, it kind of never came because the basketball program is in a bit of a ditch right now, buddy. As you know,
a bit, just
a bit of a ditch, a bit of a ditch. I say a bit. The title literally says "Is OU basketball a dead program?" So we're obviously down bad there. But yeah, let's talk about it. So look. Barring a miraculous turnaround, and we'll talk about OU football as well. Kevin Wilson, there's some other stuff in there. But barring a miraculous turnaround, OU's about to miss the tournament for a fourth straight season, which will be the longest streak since the late 70s. So like about 47 years ago was the last time they've missed the tournament 4 times or more. That was back when Dave Bliss, the bad one, was in charge. Not the one on the Thunder, the Baylor one with you just Google it. It's a wild story if you don't know. But yeah, I mean, like less than a decade. We were talking about a Final Four team. A program that produced the likes of Buddy Hield, Trae Young, Austin Reeves, and here we are on the brink of really a low point for what I think is kind of an underappreciated program in college basketball. And what we're kind of here to do today is figure out how we got here and how to move on. So, just overall, what are your thoughts? What the hell is going on with this basketball program and the team specifically?
I think it's unfair to bring up the recent history and put that as an expectation for the Sooners basketball team moving forward, because in the way things are nowadays, you are what you get out, or you are what you put into your program, and we're not putting in too much. And I think you can see the fan base, the athletic department, NIL all together really just don't treat basketball as highly as it needs to. So if we're going to just be up and at 'em and saying like we deserve to be like the Buddy Hield days, we deserve to be like the Trae Young days, it's a different day and age. And I'm sorry, that's just not the case anymore. We just need to recenter and figure out, what do we want this program to be?
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby.
I don't know why I was muted there.
You went full echo, and now your mic is out. But we got a yeah, and I'm really excited to hear that on the podcast. Change your mic, and I'll talk for a little bit, because I know a lot of people have been doing a really good job reporting this, and I think Sooner Scoop and George Stoya have done absolutely amazing talking on this topic. But I think that we as a fan base are going to have very high expectations no matter the sport that we pay attention to. That includes baseball, softball, basketball, etc. And whenever we are not performing to that of a competitive nature, we are going to throw this whole program into the dirt. And what it comes down to is, I think what we really need to do is retrain our brains now and say, hey, we're OU basketball, we're in the SEC, we're going to put a lot of our effort into football, and we need it right now. We need to put a lot of our time and effort and money into football. But we need to put out at least a more competitive and respectable program. I don't know if the days of Buddy Hield and Trae Young and making the Sweet 16, Final Four, all that kind of stuff is something that we need to set that standard to right now.
But is that, like, to me, here's my thing. If that's where we're going, then yeah, OU basketball is dead for what it's been. It's that those days are gone. That means the program, as we know it, are dead. Because this is a program that is used to making tournaments, that is used to making deep runs. And while they've never gotten to the mountaintop, they've never won that national title, they boast so many Final Four appearances, several national title appearances. Like, compared to some blue bloods in the sport, they have pedigree, and it kind of gets lost. It's kind of gotten lost in the past because of the football success, and that makes sense. But to me, I feel like it's one of those things where, like you said, you get what you put into it. And in the past, with a high revenue sport like basketball, you could just make shrewd hires and recruit right. And yeah, you didn't have the bags that, the Kansases and the Kentuckys of the world had, but you could kind of navigate around that. And these days, that's not really the case. You can't build a program. If you have a guy like an Otega Owe or a Milo Suzanne, guys who will, or Londis Williams, guys who will show up and improve, they're going to get poached if you don't have the war chest to keep them. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So I think, to me, it's one of those things that I agree. I think the asset, the lack of having that is there. But I don't think that's necessarily a Joe Castiglione issue. I think it is to some degree. I think it's in some degree because they're not putting into it. But at the end of the day, Jameson, you make these decisions with your dollar. You vote for what's important to you with your dollar, with what you're putting into NIL, with what you're doing with ticket sales, everything like that. And I'm not trying to pin all of this on the fan base at all. Like, the fan base, as Ty says a lot, you make your decisions based on what you want to do and all of that. And is OU basketball a good experience right now? And has it been for the past couple of years? No, it hasn't. But at the same time, when you're getting signaled one thing that, the basketball, atmosphere, the fan base, it's not as robust as you would like.
Yeah,
and because of that, you're going to put more money into football. You're going to put more money into other things. And you're not going to be this massive program. Because that's what the fans want. The fans want to focus on other things. So the athletic department's doing the exact same thing.
I think this is a tough scenario to kind of round everything out and talk about with this basketball program, because whenever we hired Porter, what college basketball was completely different. It was completely different. And you would need to adapt to the current college basketball era whenever you have this NIL change going on. Whenever our football program is going through this much shambles and we're transitioning to the SEC, a lot of time and effort that you need to succeed and be able to change in college basketball, a lot of that effort was forced into the football program. I feel like, other than what's gone on with Brent Venables and how people say it's a poor hire, for in terms of money, I feel like we've done okay. Obviously, still room for improvement, but there's been a lot of things where I feel like we've done really good in the NIL era in terms of keeping players in football. And we put a lot of time and effort in that because it was a dire situation. Basketball kind of took a back seat there, and you compare it back to the 2016, or back whenever Buddy Hield was there. And what year is that? What year did they make it? So he was a 2013 recruit. So if you go back to 2016, if you look at that team, Bobby, this is not a team that succeeded off of NIL. This is Buddy Hield, who is not a top 100 recruit. This is Isaiah Cousins, who was not even ranked at all. Jordan Woodard, who is just a local guy from Edmond Memorial, who was not a top 100 recruit. Ryan Spangler, same thing. These are all guys, just a bunch of ragtag guys that came together and had a great run. And sometimes those things happen. Those things happen where fate comes together and it's amazing. But that's not going to happen anymore. So we cannot use that as a barometer.
But, and here's the thing too, Jameson, is like, when, let's say fate does come together and you have a good run. Well, the next year, someone's going to come with more money and try to snatch you away to Kentucky or wherever. And, that run is not the same. You can't have these grassroots college basketball programs anymore because you're going to get poached. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. And, like you were saying, Woodard, Hield, Spangler, all of those guys weren't guys who were the cream of the crop by any means. They took years to get there. And you can't, that style of building a college basketball team just doesn't exist anymore unless you're in like the tiny, little schools where you can fly under the radar and not have your guys poached.
And you're never, ever going to get a Buddy Hield. We'll go all the way to the senior season like that. It's just not going to happen.
He would have gotten snatched without a doubt.
Or NBA scouting is just going to get better and better, and you're just going to see potential in these guys earlier, and that's the reality of it. So I think that whenever you say, "Hey, Jameson, what is Oklahoma basketball right now?" and are we dead as comparative to our past? I think you might need to just wipe the slate clean of what this sport of college basketball is compared to what it was 3 years ago. Say, okay, what was it 3 years ago or 2 years ago whenever NIL started? And then what is it like now? And it's been the same thing. It is carbon copies. It is a team that starts off really well, and we think we have hope, and then we plummet in either the postseason or the conference play. And that comes down to, is it a coaching staff and a scouting staff that is not doing their job to actually prepare these guys and adapt, or is it they just don't have the talent? And I think it's got to be a little bit of both, because yes, we really need a big man. Sam Godwin is not it in SEC play, but at the same time, you can't go out there and beat Louisville, can't beat Michigan, and have this great play from your true freshman, and then it just completely falls off. Like, where is the adaptation here? Where did that go? It can't just straight up disappear. Someone is scheming against us, and we're not adequately scheming it back.
Well, and that's my thing. I think it's coaching. I think this specific version of OU has just a tremendous failure with coaching. And I like Porter Moser as a guy. He seems like a good guy, whatever. But you can't keep collapsing year after year after year. You already know what's going to happen. You have to be prepared for issues to occur. You have to be ready, to close out a game at home against Texas A&M where you have a big lead. You have to, lace up the damn, shoes and be ready to play against Texas at home. Crowd's ready. One of your few times where the crowd's like really popping. You can't get out to a flat start there at home. And then of course, you look at what happened, last Saturday against LSU, the most unacceptable, ridiculous loss of them all, where you have a lead and you completely collapse at the end in spectacular fashion. And to me, I think some of that's coaching. You have to be able to have your guys, you have to be able to drill into your guys how to stay composed, how to be in the moment, how to be I think that's part of it. I know, granted, he's not out there dribbling the ball. He's not out there making the turnovers, fouling on, 3-point shots. But I feel like some of that has to do with coaching, right?
Yeah, and it's a testament that he hasn't made a March Madness berth during his time here. It's a testament to that. And beforehand, whenever Lon Kruger was there, were we getting bounced in the second round majority of the time? Yeah, but I'm happy if I'm making 8 and 9 seed and you win in the round of 32 or the round of 64 and you get a chance the round of 32, lose to that of a Virginia, you lose to that of a who was the other one seed that we lost to? Gonzaga.
A lot of we lost to Gonzaga like twice in a row.
Yeah. And so those are okay. That keeps it competitive. It keeps the fan base with a little bit of hope. This is not that. If you have no hope, it's going to continue to go down and down and down and down. So the ways to fix that is you bring in a new coach, and you try to start a new culture. And no matter who you are as a fan base, you're always going to buy into a new culture, no matter what it is. It's even if it's good or bad, the fans will convince themselves they'll buy into it. So that's a direction you can take. Or it's you just pour in a bunch of more money, or do both. And do we have that money to give, or do the boosters want to give it to that of football because of how fragile the football program is in right now? So if you tell me right now, Bobby, say, hey, we've got this amount of dollars and this amount of donors, probably most basketball donors, I don't know, this is me completely off the dome here. I'm sure there's a group of people that donate to basketball who don't donate to football, but I bet you there's a little bit of more people that are just football and basketball. If you're saying, hey, let's put more into football, because right now that is the keystone that could break the whole column if we remove that and it continues to go down, and basketball is going to take a hit for the next couple of years, I say, okay, so be it. That's what we got to do. We're in a desperate situation right now as an athletic program, and if it means we can spend a little bit more that we wouldn't in basketball to get one big time cornerback recruit that could actually take us to win an extra game in the football, I think you pick that route every single time.
I don't necessarily disagree. I personally think this thing can't be properly turned around until you get the new arena. If that does happen, I think you need.
I don't see any way that happens. It was already so lukewarm to begin with, and now it's just like people have a sour taste in their mouth. You think the city of Norman's going to want that?
Well, it's already been approved. It's just there's just a matter of there are a couple things, couple pitfalls that might get. It's one of those things where it got council approval, but it might get overturned if there's like a citizen vote. There are a lot of elements to it. Like right now OU's going on, like they broke ground on it, or at least moved some dirt on it. They're going forward with it like it's going to happen. Like this is farther in advance than say like, the Thunder Arena back before we even had that vote. Like this is like there's stuff going on. It's not a concept at this point. It's progressed further than that. So to me, I feel like you need to make sure that gets across the goal line for sure. I think that provides you a better experience in arena. It's something that fans would want to go to. It's something that recruits, I think, will be interested in playing an environment and an arena like that, other than, what is essentially just a planner's wart of an arena, just this ugly cave that the LNC is. I feel like that can help. I feel like if there is a light at the end of the tunnel, it will be that. If you can get your way out of the LNC and build something fan base wise, I think that will be attractive. Make Oklahoma basketball something people want to go see and go play for. That will be huge.
I agree, but if you got to do it, you got to do it big, and you can't go out, spend all this money on this arena, and then you put out crappy product. I don't care how cool it is. No one's going to go watch crappy product.
No, I fully agree.
So, I mean, if it comes down to it, Bobby, if you want to, and this is the closest damn thing you're going to get to tanking, but a lot of our lingo in professional ball is kind of moving into college ball and the way the days, NIL. If we need to put more money into football and let this kind of stadium build, and then we have a nice war chest of money to use come this season whenever we get our new arena, that's going to be the most important thing for us moving forward. It's going to be huge. And if you could go out there and you can sign one of the top big men in the world or coach somebody, get a top 25 recruit, like you get two big guys coming in that are exciting and fun, that's the way to do it. And obviously I'm just kind of, shooting it with you right now. This is not really the business side of things. And obviously I'm not a person in sports administration, but the big take home, what I'm saying here is if we're doing the stadium, you better make sure you've got the assets ready for first year in that stadium. You better give a good product.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the first impression is, really the most important one for sure. And I think the thing is, when you talk about should you try to tank it away for a couple of years, I don't hate the idea. Especially if you're we're moving forward on the arena, we're going to kind of tank a little bit because you can flip a roster like that in college basketball these days.
And it wouldn't even really be like tanking like in the NBA where it's right. You would just not use as much of your funds towards basketball as you could if you're going to use some of your funds, which you're using regularly, and you still get a poor product that doesn't make the March Madness field. What the fan base of what they think about this program right now would be the same if we were, we lost 4 games in non-con and we were 0 for an SEC. Yeah. I don't think there'd be any change in what the fan base thinks.
It's a reallocation of resources.
There we go.
Would be what it is.
That's a businessman and PR and social media management right there. That's not what I have. I was using ChatGPT earlier to say, how do I say this professionally?
Yeah, no, it's we're just gonna. We're gonna pour into OU football, and we'll see you in a couple years.
And that
Show
would
up
never
if you
ever
want.
get said out loud. And
No.
No insider would ever know that. There'd be a lot of rumblings, but I think this is the way you've got to go. You've got to go all in on Oklahoma football, and then if basketball takes a back seat, I'm sorry, that's just what it is, and
it already is
in the future.
Yeah, doing this weird. I mean, it's like Mike Ehrmantraut said. No half measures. You want to, you can't, And I think to some degree, maybe you save Porter Mosier's job by letting him play out his contract and avoid buying him out for $7.5 million.
That sounds like something we just talked about in football. This sounds really weird.
Right, but football matters. But football matters. You know, I don't know if there's any, like, this was, like, so 24-25 Porter Moser is he's essentially going through the Brent Venables do everything to save your job year, but this year. This was his long shot with Jeremiah Fears, all of that. And he's failing with flying colors. So I totally get it.
It's not over. It's not over. I get it, but it is over.
Like, we know it's over. We've been here a billion times. Like, okay, maybe not a billion, but 3 at least. Like, that's enough to know that, yeah, you have a good resume because of the non-conference, and you have a couple good wins in a tough conference, right? Sure. But we all have eyes. The committee has eyes. We've seen this team get blown out, fumble the ball, like the bag over and over and over again. That's not a tournament team. That is not a team that deserves to get in the tournament. They just aren't. And it sucks because I think there were years where I think Mosier might have gotten screwed a little bit. But to that point, you know, the reason why they were on the bubble with that good of a resume is because the team couldn't figure it out. They couldn't mind their P's and Q's. And when you continue to do it over and over and over again, it's just not working. It's not working.
And matters so much too, Bobby. And what Darinoka said about this Oklahoma program is really, really concerning. That's a guy that people listen to. And if we're on the bubble, if we actually win a couple of games to get us actually in a part where Joe Lunardi has us, like, you know, on the bubble going into Selection Sunday, people are going to be like, hey, I remember listening to Darinoka or seeing this on social media, and this is a guy who is an OU homer and extremely critical. And we do not want a team in the tournament that has lost 3 straight games or whatever, how much it was, by 20-plus points.
And I think a lot of his critique was about the fan base, which...
Yeah, and I think that all goes into everything.
Yeah, and it's tricky to me because I think on one end, yeah, there are SEC schools that support thick and thin, all of that. I totally understand. But on the other end, I also understand the OU fans, specifically with that LSU game, who didn't want to go. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to go either. I don't blame them. I can't blame them. You know, especially when you do have the Thunder up the street and, you know, they're playing 41 games a night. Like, it can be tricky to devote a lot of your money and attention and emotion into something that you know isn't going to work out. And, you know, to some degree, yeah, I think that the fan culture at OU is not good. Because Travis, you know, I'm blanking so bad on the name. My God, I'm so at Travis Skull. I know I forgot his last name, but I remember his Twitter handle. He brought up a point about baseball, and you're seeing like the, you know, opening day, you know, attendance. Not a single one other than OU was below 4,000. OU with 800 people showing up to opening day, and I get weather, I get all that. But the passion isn't there for the other sports unless you are apparently a softball level dynamo or a gymnastics level dynamo. And I think that's something OU fans have to look in the mirror a little bit and realize we got to be a little bit better at that support. I think that's not just an OU fan thing. I think in some ways that's a state of Oklahoma fan thing. Oklahoma State has the exact same issue to some degree. Hell, the Thunder fans, to some degree, have an issue with that, even when the team's good. Down to Dunk had a lengthy discussion on, you know, the best team in the NBA not having the seats fully filled. And I think it's just one of those things where it's a little tricky. I think the fan culture can be a little bit better about going all in.
How are we going to fix that? We keep on saying it can be better. It can be better. You guys should be better. We keep saying everyone should be better, but no one's going to do it because why would I want to go out there? I'm just going to sit on my couch. I'll still like kind of watch the game on the side. I'll check the score. Why do I need to go do this? It's like, I feel like we hear this all the time. Same thing with Thunder. Same thing with the Oklahoma Sooners basketball team. We need to be better. Okay. Where are you going to go with that?
That's fair. I mean, you can't change a culture in a day. You can't flip it. It's something that is, takes decades to build. And, outside of Oklahoma football and OSU football and, the Thunder basketball has started becoming this, but it still has a ways to go, in terms of being regular and repeatable. It just
Thunder just hung over from the past seasons. Like it's going to get rejuvenated next year.
Right. No, I get it, but the number one team in the league, having $8 tickets.
Still, but at the same time, it's the casual fan that buys those tickets. It's not the Thunder diehards, and the casual fans are usually a year or two behind.
Yeah, and that's a whole conversation for an entirely different type of show.
But it's true because people have, fatigue, sports fatigue. We are not that big of a state, and we have Oklahoma City Thunder basketball that is people put their time and effort into to watch. And Oklahoma basketball is the same sport in the same time frame, and there's so much fatigue there that we do not have the population to go out there and go, oh, you know what? I spent all this time going to 41 Thunder games. I'm going to go to an Oklahoma game this Saturday. Let's pull up the top 25, Bobby. Auburn is number one in the nation right now. They do not have to deal with that. Florida's in Gainesville. They do not have to deal with that. Duke and Durham does not have to deal with that. Alabama does not have to deal with that. Houston a little bit. Tennessee does not have to deal with that. Texas A&M does not have to deal with that. Like a lot of these, college towns are not as close to a dominant NBA basketball team in a lower population-based area. We have a small market plus, trying to keep up with two big basketball teams. And it's I'm sure these fans are just fatigued of how much sports they got to intake.
I think that's a fair point. And I think that's just the market. Maybe that's the case. They're just not, that's just not the market they are. That's not what Oklahoma is. And maybe that's okay. I don't know. Because like you said, especially when comparing to other SEC schools, the closest NBA team to outside of Oklahoma City and the Thunder would not be Memphis. It would be it'd be Athens, Georgia to Atlanta, which is over an hour. So not exactly an easy drive, not a hard drive, but not an easy drive.
And I'm curious what Georgia's basketball program's conversation is right now too.
Yeah, and they're having one of the better years they've ever had, like in a while. I know they had Ant Edwards,
and that's not really saying too much, though. No. They're still at the bottom of the SEC. They're right with us.
Right.
It's South Carolina who's just poop, and then LSU who's a little bit better, and then we're right there, and then there's Georgia.
Yeah, but South Carolina doesn't have anyone nearby, so it's. The fan support thing it's just going to be one of those conversations that's going to linger, I think, for a while, especially with how passionate SEC fan bases are for multiple sports. And I don't know. I think Oklahoma fans are just going to want to figure out if they want to be in that category of, fan support. If they want to be in that category, they'll buy the tickets. They'll decide. That's not for us to decide. All we can do is just yap and talk, and it doesn't matter. You don't get the tournament. The committee doesn't consider whether or not your fans showed up in the in the tournament. That Lenardi's not looking at that. I don't know. I don't think they do. It'd be funny if they did.
And fan buy-in, I feel like, has a little bit of an angle in the bias of a committee.
And we want to talk about the administration aspect of it. OU's public perception is historically way lower than it should be. That is a historic basketball program that I don't think nationally people really give it its flowers for as prestigious as it has been. Yeah, they haven't won a title, but neither is Tennessee. And I think when you look at when you look at some of the statistics and history and all of that, Tennessee hasn't been to a Final Four. OU has been to 4. So but Tennessee does a good job of marketing it, that they are a better basketball, have a better basketball history.
They got a lot more money than us in their basketball.
They got a lot more money. They got a lot more fan interest. And, well, obviously right now they're significantly better.
Really damn good.
To say the least, yeah. But historically, it's really like, I think if you asked a random college basketball fan, generally, who's a better basketball school, some people might say the Vols. And I don't know, like, who has a better basketball history. Someone would say the Vols. And I don't necessarily know if...
Hey, how much a ball knower are you talking to in terms of the history of there's not a lot of people out there that are really well versed in the history of college basketball teams that haven't won a national title.
Right. And ultimately it doesn't matter. Like, basketball has changed, It's like, especially college basketball with NIL and all of this, talking about 2016, might as well be talking about the James Naismith, Peach Basket era, of the sport. Like, it's just different. And look, if you want to be a Tennessee that can invest in all of these sports, baseball, football, basketball, it takes money, it takes time, it takes effort. And Tennessee does a damn good job at that. And I'll give them credit for that. Like, they do a really good job of supporting a bunch of multiple sports. But it takes time, takes effort, takes a hell of a lot of care. And I don't think Oklahoma fans have that same degree. And they're going to have to figure out if they want to be that.
I think we want it. I don't think we want to put in the work. That's my biggest take home of all of this. And I feel like we've had this conversation for years now. Even whenever we had Trae Young. Like, seriously. It's like it's been the same conversation every single time. So I just don't know what's going to change.
Right. Yeah. And it's like OU's been able to circumnavigate that for a while because they have good hires. They have good hires. And in this version or this world, you have to have more than just good hires. In some sense. Yeah. And Porter and Brent might not be good hires. But
might
in a different world, maybe. I don't know. But
I think Porter Moser would be a good coach at a mid-major, and I'm cheering on him to get a job at a mid-major next season.
Yeah. He's been really good.
I care about him so much. I care about him so much to get a job at a mid-major next year. It has nothing to do with Oklahoma and its contract and the buyout. No, I just am cheering on him.
He needs to realize, there are sunnier skies elsewhere. Maybe a good, a good St. Louis. A trip to the, Missouri Valley could be nice. So
kind of what we did with Jeff Levy. Maybe we'll see.
Your star will shine brighter elsewhere. But no, overall, I think that pretty much sums up where we are as a basketball program. It's not great. As a program as a whole, I'm just going to ask you, because I don't think we've firmly talked about it yet. What are your thoughts on Castiglione? Stay, go. I know a lot of... I feel like the sentiment towards him has flipped so harshly negative, and I don't know if it's fair or not. I'm still not sure.
We had 2 bad hires in these past 5 years, or past 3-4 years. And it's really made Castiglione look bad, but he has such a long history that this is just a couple years. I am willing to give it, a little bit more ride, see how he responds from bad decisions in each sport. And then if he makes a couple bad decisions moving on forward again, then I think that you need to hold him to a higher standard. But I'm not ready to make that decision. I think that we're trying to find scapegoats right now, and I'm not ready to throw Castiglione under that bus.
I agree. I know people want blood. I get it. It sucks to lose, and it sucks to be embarrassed year one of the SEC. But I think Castiglione's track record has earned him one more hire in football and basketball to, reset the ship, get everything right, because I think he's earned it. I think he's built a damn good program across the board, and maybe he failed to adapt, but I think you need at least with the coaching aspect, you need to give him another shot. So that's my thoughts on it. Not being a shill by any means. I don't know. I just don't think we should be so hasty to put the guy's head on a spike when a little over a year ago, we were calling him the best AD in the country.
That's all sports for you. Sports put everyone's head on a spike. That's legitimately what they do. It's either you're hot or cold. There's nowhere in the middle. And he's somewhere in the middle right now. Let's not try to get him on one end of the spectrum.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely toasty. I just don't think it's firmly out, like, by any means. I don't think he's out on the same category as, like, a Moser or, like, a Venables, by any means.
Mm-hmm.
But if they fail, and the next guys fail, he's gone. So, anyways, let's move on to a little bit of football news. And I gotta say, this is truly shows you how bad the state of basketball is when a pivot to football news is a bright and sunny pivot. But here we are. Kevin Wilson, former Tulsa head coach and assistant at OU from 2002 to 2010, joining the staff as an offensive analyst. This to me, I feel like, is a perfect hire. Like, for as far as an offensive analyst goes, I know his run at Tulsa was awful. Those past 2 years, Tulsa's a hard place to win, and he did his best work as a coordinator. So having that experience to kind of guide young Ben Arbuckle, towards making the right offensive decisions, stuff like that, I think it's going to be. I think that's a great move. And, obviously knows the place pretty well. I get the whole retread thing is a little annoying, but this is like the guy you kind of want from that era. He produced the best offense in OU history in 2008, won the Broyles Award. He's, to me, just, it feels like a perfect fit.
Yeah, I think in the micro, like looking about what can Kevin Wilson specifically do for Oklahoma, and I think the mentorship with Ben Arbuckle is great, and obviously he's in a familiar territory. That's the micro. But looking at a big picture, macro here, what makes me happy to see this is Brent Venables is a guy that we've seen in his history is he finds people in his corners, and if he trusts you, that means a lot. He has trust issues, and that is a huge, huge deal and one of his biggest pitfalls as a Oklahoma head coach. I don't know his relationship with Kevin Wilson, but I'd figure that he has a lot of trust in him and a lot of respect for him. And what we need so badly right now is Brent Venables to trust something in the offense to where he can go pause off and run the defense like he has to. And he's been put in the position where he has to right now. And was Ben Arbuckle going to be that guy where he could take all pause off and be like, you know what? This young up-and-coming guy at Washington State, I'm going to let him run it, and I'm going to do a little bit as a head coach, but I'm going to put the vast majority of my things into the defensive coordinator job. I struggle to believe that before the Kevin Wilson hire is going to be true because of who Brent Venables has been thus far at OU. With Kevin Wilson overseeing things now, I understand it's just an analyst. I think that should really, really help Brent Venables' anxiety in terms of not needing to do as much as he thought he had to on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, having that head coaching experience for some of those, go for it, don't go for it, those aspects, that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt to have a guy who's done it and, an extra guy who can help streamline everything. His run at Indiana wasn't great, but I feel like if you look at the history of Indiana football, it wasn't bad, if that makes sense. It was just mediocre. So I'm not saying, we have this great head coach to help us help guide us to a title or anything. That's not the case by any means.
No.
But he's going to help
a guy
on the offensive
that
end
Oklahoma trust and Brent Venables trust. Hopefully. I'm just assuming because he hired him, but that is a huge, huge deal right now because we are in a state of flux where we need as much trust we can in the offensive side of the ball.
Yep. Yeah. And there's obviously a ton of respect there, obviously with him and Brent, him and the program. I remember he was on an episode of Conversations with Coach back when Sellout Crowd was a thing, right when he took the Tulsa job. And, still had tons of respect for Stoops and OU and obviously the state to come back to Tulsa. So, yeah, no, I think it's a good fit. Okay, lastly, let's move on to some wider college football news, but obviously affects OU as well. Yahoo's Ross Dellinger is reporting that the SEC and Big Ten looking at trying to force the hand for expansion of the college football playoff to either 14 or 16 teams. And look, we can kind of go through it, but essentially the proposal.
The SEC and the Big Ten are trying to make a college football playoff better for the SEC and the Big Ten. This is
exactly.
Big news.
Exactly. It's first of all, as if I'm trying to be non-biased neutral, hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think 12 is a shade too big, if anything. So going to 14 or 16 is insane. It's so they can guarantee 4 SEC and 4 Big Ten teams in every single year and consolidate more of the power. And that's, to me, really frustrating.
Yeah, I think that the SEC and Big Ten are going to get so damn close to getting that no matter what, just based off the bias of the selection committee every year. So, I mean, I feel like we're almost splitting hairs at this point.
Yeah.
You know?
And the money's going to cause that split naturally anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So just wait. You just got to give it some time. You know, the TV money's going to make sure those 2 horses run out in front. It's going to happen. But also, I think probably more interesting than anything is the addition of a 9th conference game for the SEC would be a part of this. So no more Mercer in November, which, look, I know OU's been bad. And they don't make a bowl without that Maine game. I'm all in favor. all in favor of 9 SEC games. I want it. If OU is at a place where they have a problem and they desperately need to beat a Mercer or a Maine to get in the bowl, the coach should be fired and you should be resetting it anyways. Like, if you're doing that regularly. Like,
okay, regularly. I was about to say, I thought you said you didn't want to fire Brent Venables.
I wanted one more year. I wanted one more year, but I'm just saying.
I don't mean to pivot this into that conversation, but I mean, if you talk Oklahoma football, you kind of have to.
Oh yeah, no, I which is fair, but I
hope we lost Bobby again. I will get back at it.
Yeah, if you're regularly needing that last win, yeah. I was saying if you regularly need that last, you have no business competing, and you need to reset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We shouldn't be trying to grab at straws that can get us a 6th win, and it's going to be fun and good for the product, to have one more SEC opponent. Fans will like it more, be better for the dollars coming into the program. You don't have to pay Maine $500K to come in. You can get, people excited instead of Maine, what if we would have had, who we would put on our schedule last year? That would have been fun. That would have not been it would have been like an average team in the SEC. Give me like an average team in the SEC we didn't play.
Hell, even like Kentucky. Even like Kentucky.
Yeah. But like
if you throw Kentucky there, like not even a good SEC team, but it's a team with a pulse. I mean, OU wasn't a good SEC team either.
Like Florida. What if we had played Florida?
Well, that would have been a banger. That would have been a banger.
Yeah.
Would have been delightful.
Man, and I'm excited for that Florida matchup. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Football, I'm guessing, or in
yes,
the future.
Not talking about tomorrow.
Not talking about tomorrow's game at Florida.
At number 2, Florida.
Billy Donovan court. Not going to go well. Not going to go well at all. No, that's going to be eventually really fun. They've only played the Gators one time in history, and twice, because they had that Cotton Bowl.
I was about to say, there's one game that we really are sad about, and then there's another game that the head coach of Florida said didn't even count. So,
according to Dan Mullen, we've only played one time. So, depending on who you ask, that'll be a fun one. But overall, I'm in favor of it. And then lastly, they're looking at doing essentially, if they did that, there'd be like an SEC Big Ten showdown where
just
you have
disband from the NCAA already. Golly, every single step is one step farther away from the NCAA. Just rip the Band-Aid off. I don't understand all of the money that goes into it, but by golly, I just want to get rid of it. Just make a Super League.
I don't know what. I would rather them play, kissy with the Big Ten and draw this out as long as possible, just so like the TCUs, Arizona States, like you have some semblance of college football left. If we can just pretend that that's still a part of it, I'm okay with that. But I'm not in favor of ripping off the Band-Aid for a Super League. I think that would be it would kill the sport. Would just never be the same. I can't get behind that.
I get that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's just creating so many issues right now. I feel like we just need something that's standardized, and until we get rid of the NCAA, it's not going to be standardized.
Yeah. NCAA is a mess for sure. Well, that's kind of all we have for today, Jameson. Any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
No, if Florida wins tomorrow, this podcast still makes sense. If Oklahoma wins tomorrow, how many Oklahoma fans are going to get excited? What's the spread on that? Have you looked at it yet?
If OU wins tomorrow, like the second after we released a show called Is OU Men's Basketball a Dead Program, we should get all of the credit for the win because we reverse jinxed them all the way to a Florida win.
Wait, so it's at Florida, the number 2 team in the nation. Have you looked up the line, or do you have any idea what the line is?
No. Do we want to play Guess That Line?
Yes, guess that line. What do you think it is, Bobby?
I'm going to go Florida minus 19.5. So we're going to go with like less?
Yeah.
Oh,
14.
Where are we looking? 14. Not a lot of okay, I see.
Bobby looks at his
saying there's a chance.
Oklahoma. Oh man. I remember whenever I saw the Auburn line, I was like, yikes. That's no way that we could lose by, what was it, 17.5 or something like that? Oh, we did.
It was 19. I think it might have been. No, it was 17. It was 17. And for a while it was like, oh, look, they're gonna hang in there, and then those 25-year-olds just took them out.
Dude, Florida's got a really damn good. I really like this Florida basketball team. Like, this is a team that I'm putting in. I mean, this is the number 2 team in the nation, so this is not a hot take. But I'm just saying this is not a team that I think is getting upset in the tournament. Like, I really like this Florida basketball team, and they're solid, and they always come out and play really well. Like, there's not a lot of games this year that I've seen that they've just kind of disappointed in. So I'm very nervous about Oklahoma.
The worst they've looked was at Tennessee, I think. Like that was bad.
Yeah, that was a bad one. You're right. That was a disappointment. That second half was putrid. They got absolutely demolished in the second half. Okay, that's a disappointment. Right. But other than that, that's still the number 6 team in the nation on the road, right? Yep. So this is a team, the way that they played all season, that I would be very concerned for Oklahoma not covering that spread.
Yeah, no doubt. But all right, Jameson. Well, that's all we have for today. We'll be back at some point to talk about whatever OU athletics throws our way. Maybe get Bowden Blake on for a little baseball pod. That team's gonna be fun. That's a team worth supporting. They're pretty damn good. Great pitching staff. So yeah. All right. Well, for me and Jameson and the whole Schooner Pod group, this has been the Schooner Pod. See you next time. Boomer Sooner, everybody.